So this is a non-professional calibration, calibrating a projector for a wall, not really calibrating the projector itself, although we are changing the settings in the calibrator. We're changing the R, G and B, red, green and blue settings in the projector, sorry, so that the color output actually makes things look pretty natural on a random wall. Because a wall is not a neutral white or neutral grey, and so consequently it has its own colours, whatever they are. The wall may be very peach or yellow or blue or who knows what, but that'll be changing the colours, and especially if it's green, so let's say, people are going to look really odd in movies. So we use the iprofiler and we need to point it away from the centre of the projected image, because as you'll see, if I press the menu control on the projector, the settings I'm going to be adjusting are in fact going to likely interfere with the calibration, the profiler, and because you'll be pointing at it, and there are actually colours in that menu, and here are some of the settings that we'll be changing, and it could be picking up what it's seeing there. So you need to put your device to the side, pointing to the side of the projected image. I've actually got it pointing at the bottom right hand corner. Now normally speaking, when you use the iprofiler software you use for Projector to profile it, which we're not doing, we're not profiling, you would go to the Projector part of the software, which I'll show you in a moment, which is here, profiling for a projector. Well, we won't be doing that, but if you did do it, it would go through a procedure for centering the device. You don't want to center it because those menus are going to interfere. So you just need to aim well, and then it will be looking at a patch of your projected image that is not being interfered with by menus. So in fact, to calibrate the projector you need to be using display profiling, but we'll do that in a moment because we need to prepare both the projector and the laptop. The first thing we need to do is go to the projector menu and reset everything. If you've got a reset mode, I would reset. You've also got to find a color mode which actually is calibratable. Dynamic, for example, really screws with the colors. And as you try to calibrate dynamic, you'll find that you won't be able to. Red, green and blue will all be moving against each other. But you'll see how they move when I show you the process. The one that's most calibratable here is sRGB. In your projector it might be natural. It might be a mode called natural. But cinema and bright cinema are fine as well. I don't have bright cinema on this projector, but bright cinema is fine. But if you're creating a profile, you'll actually be flattening out the brightness, the extra brightness in the cinema mode if you're using bright cinema. But we're not doing that, we're just calibrating, so it doesn't matter so long as it's not screwing with the colors, which is what dynamic mode does. Each of the settings also is preserved, so each of these modes, the settings are preserved, to clarify. That means that when I change to cinema from sRGB, all my calibration settings will change back to whatever they were for that mode, and I'll lose them, in other words. Now, when I go back to sRGB, I'll see the settings that I put in come back. That means you need to calibrate each mode that you're going to use, apart from, of course, the ones that screw the colours. So we're just going to do sRGB, but you of course will probably want to do cinema. Having reset, everything will be at its defaults, but if you didn't reset, make sure they are at their defaults. So brightness, contrast, color saturation for this projector, and tint for this projector, 50 for their defaults. Color temperature, the default should be 6500 Kelvin on your projector. I had adjusted it because I was calibrating earlier. And in customized, all of these would be 50 as well. So you notice previous calibration, I've actually changed these. So change them back to 50 for your new wall. And now I didn't reset, by the way, which is why those were there. So now the projector is ready to go, so let's get rid of that menu. And the computer needs preparing, and basically that is really, normally speaking, you wouldn't normally need to do this. The iprofiler software prepares the computer for profiling perfectly fine by unloading profiles. However, I've had the experience of having profiles loaded, even despite the fact that the iprofiler software was trying to do a calibration, a profiling. And of course that would completely mess everything up. But furthermore, and even worse, I've seen color management with this unticked, use my settings for this device unticked, and yet a profile was definitely loaded. I had to double untick, as it were. I had to tick it and then untick to force the profile to be unloaded. And that was with the iprofiler software already in operation, which was supposed to have unloaded the profile. So that's to be on the safe side. You need to go into the color management software to be on the safe side to make sure the profiles are unloaded. Now going to display profiling. All of these you can skip by. You may want to change the white point. D65, which is 65,000 Kelvin, is the default for iPads and all consumer devices these days, phones and so on. Personally, I prefer D50, which is photographic paper. It's much warmer, and I find it much more attractive. People find it more relaxing. So you need to choose your white point, but otherwise, having chosen your white point, go straight to measurement. And make sure that this tick box, adjust brightness, contrast and RGB gains manually, is ticked. That is the essential setting that helps us to calibrate the projector. Now everything's set up and ready to go, so I've clicked on start measurement, and make sure again that RGB controls is ticked, the other two should be unticked, and we go start. And there we have it. And it's showing us what the RGBs are and what they need to be. The center line is what they need to be. So what it's showing us is that we need to reduce the red. You can see that down arrow there. You need to reduce the red. You need to increase the green by a touch and increase the blue. As it happens, we can't do this because if you look at this, I'll actually show you what happens if we try to increase the blue, for instance. Customized, and I'm going to increase the blue. Absolutely nothing happens. And the reason for that is that unless you've been fiddling with some of the other settings, like in the advanced menu, which I'll actually need to show you, or maybe your children have, unless those have been changed, 50 is actually the maximum. So 50 is as much blue as there is ever going to be. So if you need to increase the blue, what you actually need to be doing is decreasing red and green. By decreasing both red and green, the blue will come up, will increase. So let me just show you those advanced settings. Oh no, I can't, because sRGB won't let me into advanced. But I can assure you, in advanced, everything needs to be at 50 as well. And there are a whole lot more RGB CMY color settings, which could have been screwed with. So double check those. Now let's go back to color temp, because this is now the actual calibration. Now what I find is easiest is to go for color temperature first and change that. So 6500 is the target for iprofiler. That's what it's trying to get us to. The projector is set to 6500, but that's for a white neutral, grey neutral screen. We don't have that, we have a coloured wall. So in fact 6500 on the projector is not close to what we actually need. So I'm just going to put it up a bit more. Can you see it's changing the indicators on the right, the left, and they're getting even closer to what we need to be, which is 6500, the real 6500. So by increasing the blue, by changing the color temperature upwards, I'm actually getting it closer to the real 6500. Obviously my wall must be very warm in its color in order to have need to increase the amount of blue, because 8500 Kelvin is very blue indeed. Notice also that the lines are now above the center point, which means I can simply reduce the red and the blue in order to get to the center line. Sorry, center line, not center point. And now that's where I need to be, because I can't add blue, and I can't add red, and I can't add green. I can only take away. Of course, I can sort of add by adjusting the other two. But this is perfect, because now all I have to do is take away a bit of red and a bit of blue. And I can easily do that in the customized. I can't go above 50, but I can definitely go below. So let's take away a bit of red, and there we go. It's now on the center line. Now we take away a bit of blue. Keep on going. And now we're there. So now we are at a genuine 6,500 Kelvin. Even though the color temp here says 8,500. Because my wall is so warm, I've had to actually increase the amount of blue by quite a lot. And then take away a smidge. And take away a tiny bit of red too. And that's it. My projector is now calibrated for this particular wall. And I will have to go through that process for the other modes as well. When I change the modes, you'll see. I'll change this to, let's say it's cinema. On your one, it might be bright cinema, that's perfectly fine. All the colours have changed again. That's because its settings are separate. And colour temp will now be whatever it is. Now 5 here represents 6,500, which for my wall, as I said, is actually much too warm. So I need to go into that, and I need to change it up to whatever 8,500 Kelvin was, probably 8 I suppose, or maybe it was 9, etc. And we just go through the same process. Look, they're all 50 again. And we need to make adjustments to these, which I'm not going to do, because that's basically as much as you need to know to do it yourself.